In this video, I'm going to walk you through step by step how you can speedrun Star Wars Jedi Survivor. The run is about a half hour, and the current world record is 25 minutes, 40 seconds by Mr. Benuto. We have just a few things to cover before we get into it. This is specifically a tutorial of any percent, which means completing the game as fast as possible using all available strategies and glitches found so far. I'm playing on PC, and the general route of the run is the same on console, but a lot of the tricks are slightly different. So if you want to run on the PS5, Xbox S or X, I would check out the leaderboard and watch those runs, or join our Discord and ask about the differences in there. This tutorial is also only for the New Journey game mode. We have a separate category for New Journey Plus that uses a different route. Okay, before we get to the run, here are the things you should set up first. You'll want to record your runs if you plan on submitting them. I recommend OBS or NVIDIA Shadowplay. You should be able to use any recording software that you want, but make sure to capture audio. And if you have live split or anything else on screen, make sure it doesn't cover these areas of the screen. You may want to play on mouse and keyboard, but I prefer using a PS4 controller. I'm running the game on Steam, and I use the software Joy2Key to bind a couple keys that I'll talk about in a second to my controller instead of the keyboard. I would recommend setting your graphics to low or medium, and specifically foliage put on low. Next, you'll want to go to accessibility and change disable UI input hold to on. This will make menuing and cutscene skips in the run go much faster. Under visuals, turn on the stabilizing UI dot. The UI dot is what we'll use to make sure we're looking at the right place when we set up launches across the map. Then set your field of view to wider. This is optional. You can play on whatever FOV you want, but the setups for the launches in the run are different on different FOVs because you're looking at different things. And the setups that you're going to see in this tutorial all use wider. At the bottom of this page, turn on slow mode and leave the dilation at 30. We'll use slow mode to do some tricks in the run that launch us across the map. They don't require slow mode. They're possible without it, but they're easier to time with slow mode. Then, because we're going to map a key to it instead, turn off shortcut controls. You don't have to do this if you're playing on mouse and keyboard. And finally, turn on camera shake to 100% if it isn't already. Now, at the top of accessibility, you're going to want to go into your controls and scroll down until you find slow mode. Since I'm using a controller, I just set it to a random key on my keyboard, and then I use Joy2Key to assign that key to the PlayStation button on my controller. If you're on mouse and keyboard, use whatever key you want. After you set this up, go into the game and test it out to make sure it's working. You want to make sure you're in borderless window. You can play on full screen, but it will make a trick I'm going to explain next a little more challenging. There's also one thing we have to do each time we relaunch the game. This is a setup step that makes many of the tricks we'll do in the run work, and if you forget to do this as you boot up, you'll realize it quickly because the very first trick we're going to cover won't work. Once you're in the game, just pause and open the photo mode. That's it. Photo mode just has to have been opened once for this next trick to work. Now, just before we get into it, I do want to explain a trick that you're going to see throughout the run. In fact, the very first thing we do when we get control of the character uses this trick. It's called a PBC. PBC stands for Pause Buffer Clip, where we hit the F11 key on the keyboard or our rebounded controller key to switch the game from full screen to windowed. Doing this lags the game for a second, which lets Cal run right through the wall. For every PBC in the run, I'm always doing it twice to make sure the game goes out of full screen and then back into it. So anytime after this that I say PBC, I really mean 2 in quick succession. If you want to easily track your time as you run and track your own progress, I highly recommend downloading and setting up Live Split, but it isn't required for submissions. Okay, with all that out of the way, it's time to learn the run. From the main menu, just go to Start New Journey, select Story Mode. I prefer disabling the Force Interaction Hints, and hit continue. Now, the first thing you have to remember to do each run is disable the tutorials. You can't go into settings immediately, so I wait until the ship passes the spire. Then open the menu, go to gameplay, go all the way to the bottom, and then up to tutorials and turn them off. Here's what that might look like once you've got it down. Now, this first actual trick in the run is a little difficult, so don't get discouraged if you can't get it immediately. After this, I'm going to show you an alternate way that's easier and still saves a lot of time. So at the beginning of the game, Cal's being led along this walk by some guards, and he's stuck walking behind them for a few minutes. Obviously, that isn't ideal for speed, so we want to trick the game by voiding out, which sets Cal free so he's able to run around. The fastest way to do this is with a slow motion launch right away, using the animation of the twins pushing you when you get too close to them. So right when the game starts, you want to start spinning around towards them, walk slightly forward, and then activate slow mode. As soon as you hear the sound of Cal being pushed, PBC twice quickly. And then immediately after that, disable slow motion. If it works, Cal should appear up in the air or down below the platform, fall and respawn, and now be able to run. If you're having any trouble with twin skip, here's an easier method you can do to get walk skip. Just go over to this pole, and while facing away from it, turn towards it, and at the same time, PBC twice right as you meet it. Now, you'll probably notice that I did say run, and yet Cal is doing this weird lunge dance thing. This is the movement tech of this speed run, and you'll want to get pretty familiar with it because it's the fastest way to move Cal around, even faster than just dead sprinting. This is definitely going to take some practice, so once you start learning this run, I recommend starting with this and kind of just moving around and chaining dashes together until you have a feel for it. What's happening when you block is you're canceling the end slow part of the dash animation that slows you down. Now that we're free from our bonds, we just want to dash all the way around the next few corners and up these stairs. Once you get here, start counting the grates on the floor, and when you're moving over the third one, double jump. If you do it correctly, you'll avoid this sequence where one of the twins grabs you and you get scanned by the rope droid. Keep going forward even though your camera's locked behind you, and go to this general area. Once you move far enough, K405 will appear and grab you. Now we take a very glitched out elevator ride, and if it works right, you should appear in the elevator at the top and get pushed out. Sometimes when you do this trick, you may start moonwalking away from K405. If this happens, you went too far to the right when moving towards the elevator, and you'll have to reset. If you try to continue, force powers won't work for the rest of the run. It's a weird bug that happens. Okay, and then we get to a cutscene. And I'll just go ahead and clarify that we skip every cutscene in the run as soon as it comes up. So now this is the tutorial combat. The fastest way that we found to do this is as soon as these troopers start coming up over the edge, pull them towards you and slash them right before they get in front. Then run over here and slash at the backs of these next troopers. Sometimes they will, if you're too close to the edge, they will spin around and face you, which means you can't kill them in one hit. If that happens, jump and hit them while you're in the air. You want to do that so that you don't do a kill animation on them, which would take longer. After that second guy, spin around towards the ship and force pull. You should grab a trooper, and right before he gets in front of you, swing, and you should hit 2 in 1. And then finally, the last 3 guys, you want to time a held, powered up force push and hit all 3 at once. Now with that, you're done with the tutorial combat and a cutscene will play. But there's actually a little trick you can do. If you time it right, if you push the 3 guys off all at once and then jump off with them, sometimes you can begin moving on the next platforming section before you're out of the next cutscene. You'll know if it works if you see yourself skip over once the dialogue ends. If you get it, you'll save a few seconds. Now is the tutorial climbing section. If you want to get the fastest possible time here, we're going to do a trick right here. So remember this spot, and I'll come back to it soon. For now, while you're still learning the route, it's best to keep going this way. I'll explain why in a minute. And when this pipe falls, go here and jump up and to the right. This will skip a forced slow climbing section on this beam. Okay, now once you fall into this room, turn to the right and run towards the wall, PBC. After you clear the wall, get ready to double jump. Ignore these two guys and then jump over to the left. Now we want to jump up on this pole and jump to the platform up here to save a few seconds. This takes some practice, but it helps to get ready for the jump and kind of stop moving and then double jump and direct yourself in the air while you're falling. All right, finally, it's time for the first across the map launch of this run. The trick we're about to do is called a PBL, or pause buffer launch. For some reason in this game, when you're standing against a climbable surface, if you force push and then jump, Cal will rocket backwards with crazy speed. The PBL works by doing all this in slow motion and PBCing at the right time. As soon as we PBC, we also want to start spamming the lightsaber swing attack. If all goes well, you should fly this way. And we're aiming for a very specific load trigger that's right about here. You want to fall through this roof and be swinging your saber to avoid stumbling when you land. If you don't end up going this direction or you get close but you miss the trigger, don't be surprised. These PBLs are probably the hardest trick in the run to get good at. To set this up properly, come up to this grate, stand about here, and slowly start moving to the right. When you're in the right spot, you should notice Cal snapping back to the left. Once that happens, look down and put the centering dot here. Enable slow mode, force push, and then jump as soon as you see the dot start moving. Once Cal starts moving backwards or stretching, PBC, and then start spamming attack. This can take a lot of practice, but it saves over 5 minutes, so if you're doing any percent, this is a must-do trick. So, if you're in the middle of a run and you get to this launch, if you mess up, you'll void out and respawn back to the grate to try again. This is great for new runners, but if you want the fastest possible time, you're also going to want to do that climbing tutorial skip I mentioned earlier, which will save you another 30 or 40 seconds. The downside of doing this is that if you do the launch and miss, you'll go all the way back to the start of the climbing section, rip run. To do the skip, get to this part of the climbing grate. Drop and double jump at the right time while moving slightly left to land up here. Jump off and forwards, land right on this circular thing, and you should live. One thing I should mention here is that PBCs and PBLs are both affected by hardware in weird ways. For example, your FPS and how many monitors you have plugged in can affect PBCs. So you may have to mess with your settings and timings until you get to a place you're happy with. So this is where we've landed after the launch, in this elevator. Just walk forward, trigger the elevator, and ride it up. Double jump up as early as you can, and PBC through the green laser door. These green laser doors have kind of odd hitboxes, so you may have to PBC earlier than you expect to get through. Skip this cutscene, and turn around. Now, you'll get a pop-up warning you the game has detected something isn't looking right. Congrats, you've broken Jedi Survivor. Make sure to move to the right selection to continue, then press confirm. You're going to have to do this in every run right here, so just be careful. If you select the left option, you'll go back before the launch. Run up these stairs and activate the zipline. Right as it fires, sprint towards it and do a slow double jump. The end of the zipline should connect and you'll grab on before you fall past. On all ziplines, by the way, we want to be holding boost, which makes you go faster on ziplines. You're going to use either right trigger on controller or left mouse button to boost. At the end, drop off the zipline and go up these stairs. Double jump up onto this tall grate and climb up. At the top, we're going to turn towards the right wall and run at it slightly to the right and then PBC. And you should end up on a ledge just outside. Jump over here and land. Keep in mind, anytime we jump and land, we want to swing the saber to cancel animations. Also be warned, when going through this wall, it's pretty easy to soft lock and get stuck. If you want, you can PBC through this door instead and jump down. Head to this crack and then come right back out and you'll start the K405 fight. Since we're on the easiest difficulty, you can just attack him 6 times, then throw your saber twice to finish him off quickly without doing the kill animation. Dash over here and pick up the grapple. After this cutscene, dash over, jump up, grapple up, and then immediately run towards the wall and PBC. Once you're through, run to the right and out, and you want to land on this roof here so that you don't void out. Jump down and then take the zip line back across. At the end of this zip line, drop off and jump up onto this railing, and then jump again into a good spot to immediately PBC back through the green force field. Now we're going to do a somewhat challenging skip called Meat Room Skip. All it really is a PBC with specific positioning, and then some movement out of bounds. Activate the elevator, wait just a second, and then face away from this wall and backdash. Right as you're about to meet the wall, PBC. If you're at the right spot, you should appear in the dark, but still standing on the elevator platform as it goes down. Now we want to wait right here until the game lags, and that means we have hit the load trigger for the next area. You can also use the top of the roof as an indicator here. Just be below that when you jump over. The whole time you're in this area, occasionally block with your lightsaber so that you can see. Put your back to this left corner and step away slightly, and then do the same backdash PBC we just did to get into the meat room. We'll be up in the rafters, so you want to double jump again on top and run down over the boxes. If you fall through, you'll just have to slowly squeeze through the boxes. In this room, run around the corner, and if you get lucky on the timing, you'll immediately be able to grapple up to the moving boxes. Jump off and run through this room. You can get away with doing the movement tech sometimes, but if you get shot by a blaster bolt, you'll get stuck in a short animation, so it's generally better to run and have Cal automatically block shots. PBC through this door, and then grapple up. Here's where, if we were playing the game normally, we'd fight the Ninth Sister boss fight. Instead, we PBC into this room, go over to this wall, and do the backdash PBC. Then double jump and land on this little metal piece sticking out, and jump down onto the windowsill. If you don't catch that metal bit, you'll void out. If you find landing there too difficult, kind of do a longer double jump and land over here instead. Now run over here and PBC through the wiring. Jump down onto this roof and be careful where you land. It's pretty easy to hit the roof wrong and bounce off into the void. Once you get to this corner, run and jump off, and double jump just before you get to the ground so you don't do a roll animation when you land. Take this down. And then for the troopers here, we just want to push the first off, blaster block the second, and then pull and kill the third. You can immediately activate the zipline and right away jump up to it. When you jump off the third billboard, you want to double jump so that the longer grapple animation doesn't play at the end. The animation is longer because Cal is below the grapple point when we grapple, so that's why we want to be above it. Jump on this crate and then double jump over the ledge and up to this platform. Now, here's our first pretty difficult jump in the run, called lamp jump. If you don't want to do it and lose a little bit of time, you can just climb this rope and jump over. But the fastest way is instead run to the right, double jump up on top of the lamp, and jump off at the right time. At the peak of this jump, double jump again while looking up and to the right at the zip line. If you do the lamp jump correctly, the grapple will become available for just a second and you can get over to it. This takes a lot of practice, so just kill all these guys and try it a bunch of times. PBC through this door, and then you want to go through this wall and fall down. This wall has kind of an odd hitbox. PBC it earlier than you normally would. When you're down here, you want to sprint at this gap in the wall and PBC right as you hit this spot on the floor. You should go through and be outside. Now we can run up to where the combat begins, and there's kind of a lot of ways to deal with all these enemies, so I'll just let you see how I do it. Once we speak to Bowden Bravo, we finish Coruscant about a third of the run.
Not bad yourself.
Now that we're on the ship, we just walk over here, interact with this item,
We should tidy up
and then turn towards these shelves and PBC right as Cal's about to meet them. These skips through the walls of the ship only save a second or two, but they look cool. We open the workbench, click through it once, and then close it,
Up to the cockpit.
and walk over and PBC through again. Then one more, and interact with the cockpit. After we drop out of the ship onto Kobo, we're going to learn about another trick called Pocket NFT, or Pocket No Fall Timer. In this game, when you jump from a high distance, the screen goes black and you void out if you go too far. We found a trick called NFT, No Fall Timer, to disable this timer, and then we found a way to do it without any setup, anywhere we want, temporarily. To execute the trick, go to the edge of a cliff or ledge and face away from it. Then, all at the same time, move towards the edge, away from where you're facing, spam the change stance button, and jump. If you do all of these at the same time and close enough to each other, Cal will float backwards, and as he falls, he won't void out. Once you get close to the ground, we also want to block and then jump to cancel out the animation when we hit the ground. Once you've landed, we want to run over and trigger this elevator. We'll need it for later. Then we want to rest at this med point. Right before you sit at it, hit the change stance button, and you'll put away your lightsaber immediately. Now we're at the second launch of the run. To get there, run towards this metal beam and the red screen and PBC into it and then turn left. When you drop through the ground, wait a second and then double jump. If you double jump too late, you'll fall through the world, and if you do it too early, you'll hit your head and respawn. This is the hidden Grate launch. To set it up, jump up to this Grate, and you want Cal's right hand to line up with the edge of the square like this. Drop off, and then look down and look here with the centering dot. The timing for the force push, PBC, and spamming attack are all pretty similar to the first launch from before, but they do vary slightly. When you've had enough practice with them, you'll start developing muscle memory for the different launches. The area we can land with this launch is kind of varied. Because we're swinging with the saber, sometimes you'll get a huge, very fast launch that takes you all the way to this cliff. But be careful, the ground ends at a certain point, and you can't tell. Your other option is to try and land on this underground cross shape. Try to aim for the middle-ish, and double jump to cancel momentum just as you pass through the hill. With some luck, you'll be able to land on the cross. Once you do, just run over here and double jump up onto the oddly textured part of the ground, and you're up. Now that that launch is done, we want to jump off this cliff and head right. When we get here, the world will load. Keep going down past everything and all the enemies, and jump off here. Grab the rope. Now you have two options here. Our goal is to go up into this tower. You can either jump off the rope and jump up these walls, or you can PBC while swinging on the rope and get enough height or momentum to make this jump without going inside the tower. Once you get up here, you're ready to set up the third of our 4 launches in this run. This is the tower launch, and it'll take us all the way down Swindler's Wash. You want to move Cal up against the roots, and I like to put this root through the center of his head. Then I look down at this general area, and I aim for this sort of gray flower. You do relatively the same timings again from before, but in particular with this one, I feel like I have to PBC earlier. If it works, you should see a freeze frame on your screen of the outside of the tower for a second, and then you should be hurtling towards this area. There are a few places you can land without voiding out, but ideally you want to get as close to this area as possible. This is where the 4th launch is. You can also end up out of bounds still under the ground here. If you do, run out and to the right, and then double back once you're in the river to load the world around. Now head to this spot. The launch is up here, past this rock wall. On these vines. This is called Forest Skip, and it's the latest launch we found as of the publication of this video. Similar to before, go about here on the vines and do the force push, jump, PBC, spam attack combinations. If it works, you should appear up in the air looking at the tops of the mountains. Look down, and this is where we're aiming for. If you pass through the trigger, the world should load. Use double jump to reach it if you need to. As with all these launches, they make or break the run and take a lot of practice. At this time, I'd also recommend an optional software called Cheat Engine, which you can use to more easily practice the launches and the harder parts of the run. You can like save a location and then return to it quickly. Obviously, you can't use Cheat Engine for official runs, but I think it's great for practice. If you want to be as fast as possible, you may want to try learning some of the PBLs without slow mode. It is possible, but I find it a lot harder to time that way. Now we're all done with launches, and we can focus on the rest of the run. There's still a lot of difficulty coming up, but now the finicky launches are behind us. Just run through this area and follow my general path for speed.
It's hard to breathe.
Once we get here, drop down and head to the right. Normally here you'd have to go around this area and fire a laser to clear the wall of Kobo matter. Instead, we can just run right up to it and PBC through. The hitbox on this wall is huge, so this one can take a few attempts. One spot that is helpful to stand is right about here. Backdash PBC instead. Then just jump up and over here and up on top of this thing. Now, this jump is trickier than it looks. You can easily clip the edge and fall back down into the Kobo matter, which will slow you a bit. In order to help make the jump, just double jump late and hold movement to the right, and you should land up there and be able to continue. Now just follow the normal path.
All the critters around the array are pretty riled up. Could be the dust.
Then here, you want to dash right up this incline, and then use the movement tech to bypass all these troopers. We climb on this. And then jump over as soon as we can. And then quickly jump again to have Cal jump up. From here, we can double jump right around, saving a few seconds on climbing. Jump over and up into the Relter cutscene.
Careful, BD.
After this, we jump down and get to the most precise jump in the run, called Balloon Jump. The hardest part about this jump is executing it before the troopers gang up on you. If they crowd around and start shooting you, you'll most likely have to stop to kill them. The best tip I have for you is to run along the side of the pointy part of the cliff and then double jump towards the balloon. You want to delay the double jump until Cal is as high as possible. If it works, you should land on the balloon and have your feet grounded for a moment, which is all you need to double jump over and land on this cliff. Then rest at this med pad because we'll need it later.
Force is with me. All right, let's go.
Jump up off this wall and grapple up. We want to move right and then drop off and double jump over here to save time climbing.
This galaxy that's
Slide down and tame the Nekko.
I wish you could have seen it too, BD.
Now we get to learn another pretty easy trick, the SNJ or Super Nekko jump. When riding the Nekko, if you jump and after just a second, PBC, you'll get some crazy air. We can use this to go over here, line up the Nekko's head with this patch of grass, then SNJ, go this way, then S and J over the gate.
Clear that gate with a little boost from our new friend.
Once we get here, do it again. Then up again once more. Now we go this way. Watch the Mantis fly in, and then go over here to the left.
Next. Come on, baby. Let's meet him at the landing pad.
In this little cave, you want to park your Nekko here so that when you dismount, Cal goes towards the wall. Before he hits it, PBC, and you'll go out of bounds into this area. Normally in the game, it takes till near the end of the story to open this thing and proceed to the final planet, but we're going to get in early, very early. Come over here and open the settings to change to Jedi Grandmaster. We're doing this because right after this, we want to take fall damage and void out. And with the trick we're about to do, it's good to have this ready in case we mess it up and take fall damage. That way, we kind of save time by taking damage early. Now, there are two ways to do this next part. The easier way is to jump down as the top golden platform passes, get knocked down off of it, and then PBC and dodge towards the same platform as it comes back around. If it works, you'll go through and land inside the area. The faster way, if you get there at the right time, is to jump right off onto the second platform, but you'll have less time to get ready to go through the top one as it comes around. If you mess up, you just respawn at the top and you can try again. PBC through this door. Now, we're in the alignment tower. We need to walk over and interact with that console. But as we approach, a placeholder cutscene will trigger. There's a precise trick here where if we run forwards and open the start menu, right around the same frame that the cutscene appears, we can skip it instead of waiting the required 20 seconds that we're usually locked into it. This is pretty tough to get in a run, and we haven't found a consistent setup yet, so good luck. As the tower starts to rise, we want to run towards the wall. I run over here and PBC through. We want to keep doing this until we can only do it one more time or we'll die. Sometimes when you're doing this, you may get stuck in the alignment tower floor. If you do, just continue PBCing and sometimes jumping, and you should drop out eventually and respawn. By that time, the console should be ready to interact with again. Do so, and then jump out of the tower one more time. Respawn, and you should appear at the Nekko pools, where we last rested. Make sure to open settings and change back to easy mode at this time. Now, we need to be riding a Nekko, but somewhere you normally can't take one. To do this, we'll use a trick called Airwalk that lets us interrupt resting at a med point long enough to mount a Nekko and take it with us. To do this, you want to face the Nekko and also step off the med point, but not so far away that we can't still press the button to interact with it. What we want is for Cal to turn around and move to sit at the med point. When he does this, spam the block button. You should stop sitting and the screen should grow tinted. Now, if you're lined up correctly, you should just be able to backdash 3 times, release block, and then press the mount button. If it works, you'll snap back to the med point after a second, and then be able to fast travel to the Gorge crash site, where we need to go next. If you need to, you can also whistle to get the Nekko to move closer to you. Once we arrive, run over to the elevator and take it up. Once it's high enough up, you can do a super Nekko jump to get up slightly faster. Turn around and do a well-timed late super Nekko jump here to get across this cliff. Now we want to run up to this wall and line up with the crack in the rock. Now we get to learn one of the last and hardest tricks in the run, Mantis Clip. The same way we use the Nekko to go through the wall, we're going to use it paired with an S&J to clip into the Mantis so we can fly away. To execute Mantis Clip, super Nekko jump, then near the peak but before it, double jump off the Nekko towards the Mantis, and immediately afterwards, PBC again. If all goes well, you should end up inside the walls of the Mantis. If you miss, you should be able to fall back down, land on the Nekko again, and reattempt. The run can also end here if your timing is off. Sometimes the Nekko will disappear, and you'd have to go get it again from Nekko pools. If the Nekko disappears for you, it probably means you're jumping off too late. Once you get into the walls of the Mantis, there are two options for where you may have landed. We call them bad spot and good spot. First, good spot. If you're here and can run around, just go over to the right, face the interior, run forwards, dash, and PBC at the right time to get through the wall and appear inside the ship. If you're here and infinitely floating, welcome to bad spot, and I'm sorry. You want to go over to this corner, hold block, and move around slightly until you find the one spot that you can get grounded in. This is really tough to do, mostly because of the camera. Once you're grounded, you want to swing your saber, and right after starting the swing, PBC. If you do it correctly, you'll use the swing momentum to PBC forward into good spot. Ideally, when doing Mantis Clip, you want to aim to the right to hopefully get into the good spot. At this point, I'll go ahead and give you a massive spoiler warning. We're about to skip to the end of the story, so if you haven't played it or seen it before, I would recommend playing the game first before you watch this. It's a good story and you're about to get a huge spoiler. Okay, you've been warned. Now we go over to this console and fast travel to Tanalorr. As the ship is moving there, you have just enough time to go back to the workbench, go into the lightsaber mods, and change the color. I like party mode. Run back to the console, and as soon as the Night Sister Marin databank entry comes up, sprint towards the console and spam the activate button. Doing that will let you skip a few seconds of dialogue. Once we land, just follow this path with the movement tech. Once we get here, we're going to go out of bounds to save about 10 seconds as we go to the final boss. This is tricky and will take some practice before it's worth attempting during runs. You want to run towards the rocky wall here and PBC out. The wall has a bigger hitbox than what is visible, so try to PBC early. Once through, you want to backflip or side flip to the part of the wall clipping through to reset your height and jump. Then just double jump over to this big rock. Jump over here. Then over this thing. And then head towards the spot on the wall. Jump through and things should load. Now just proceed to the final boss, Bode. This area will look kind of weird. Just move forward and around anything invisible. Once we enter the boss fight, we want to beat the first phase as fast as possible and then break Bode's AI to finish the second and third phases faster than usual. Once this part happens where Bode goes to this spot and force grabs you, we're done with phase 1. Now it's time to choose how we're going to break his AI. First, the easier way. This way is slower, so it's less likely to save you time, especially if you make mistakes after this in the Bode fight. To do it, just wait until you're about to tackle Bode in the tube, and then PBC. For the harder way that is faster, but way more likely to end your run, what you want to do is wait until Marin creates the portal, and as soon as you see the green of her portal, PBC. If it works, you should void out instantly and respawn with Bode broken. Either way that you choose, you should break out of the Marin tube and land back on the top platform with Bode, now with his AI broken. He will no longer be able to do red attacks until you damage him enough to get into phase 3. You'll have to be very careful here. If you fall off the platform, you'll soft lock and have to reset. If you knock Bode off, he'll die and stop you from being able to complete the run. You also want to avoid the entrance of the Marin tube because it's still there and will suck you in, wasting time and taking you to the real phase 2. My favorite strategy for this, even though it may not be the fastest, is backing up and then repeatedly pulling Bode towards me. Sometimes, like you're seeing here, you'll just get lucky and he'll just keep coming at you and you can just parry him over and over again. Do this enough and now we're in phase 3. Simply beat him down and you've just speedrun Jedi Survivor. There is a way to time the attacks so that you skip this back and forth lightsaber locking moment, but it takes some practice and I only get it by accident. I'm not sure how to replicate it yet. If you have any questions or want to join us in further breaking this game by the day, come and join our speedrunning Discord server. Thanks for watching. I hope this tutorial helped you. If it did, or if you appreciated the time I put into it, leave a like or a comment. If you want to see more, subscribe. May the Force be with you.